Hello, YouTube, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. So, I just want I just wanted to make a short video, and I'm gonna hope and pray that I keep this one short. But the one thing that I had to deal with when I transitioned, and even now, years after when I started my transition, is negativity and transphobia. It's something that I constantly have had to learn how to face, and something that I've constantly had to deal with. And it's gotten to a point in my life where I don't try to run away from transphobia, because I know that as long as I am trans and as long as I exist, there will be experiences that I will have that I may perceive as transphobia. So to try and run away and pretend like it's never going to happen, or to try and create a scenario in your head where you never experience it, I think just gives power to that very thing that you want to run away from. So I'm past that point. Whether I'm clocky, whether I'm passable, I know that at the end of the day, I will always have scenarios in my life where I have to deal with transphobia to some or other degree. I will say this though, once the hormones kicked in, once I reached my female threshold and I started passing, um, I noticed that the transphobia to some degree got less. Like, people didn't clock me in the streets, so it was easier to deal with. But not all of us are at that point. And I didn't start off at that point. But I learned early on in my transition that transphobia gave me negative emotion, i.e., sadness, depression. Girl, I wanted to off myself so many times because of what I was dealing with. And so transphobia gave me negative emotion, and I needed to learn how to positively embrace negative emotion. That despite whatever happened, I needed to learn how to develop coping mechanisms that would help me deal with transphobia. And I think the one thing that I sort of advocate on my channel is just loving yourself, being kind to yourself, and treating yourself the way you would treat somebody that you really cared about. And that honestly has been my saving grace. Now, I remember back before I started reaching the female threshold, because I'm not going to say passing, I hate that word. Before I reached the female threshold, I remember I was still in college, and just after college, there was a time when me and Lauren, you know, my friend Lauren, I always talk about her on this channel, we would party a lot. We lived in a city called Port Elizabeth, and there was one club that we loved going to. They've since shut that place down, and I'm glad. So the club is called Gondwanas, and they had like the best music, the best vibe, you know, and it was basically in a two-story building. Now, Gondwanas was on the second story. So you had to go up a flight of stairs to get to this club. Now, there's a reason why I mention this. So Lauren was going to meet up with me and two other girls at this club. So it was her and these two other girls. I came in a little bit late. I get to the club, and I love dancing. I love dancing. I love partying. I love just letting my hair down. And I think the reason I wanted to sort of like enjoy myself so much was I was dealing with so much just from school, just from work, that whenever I got an opportunity to have fun, you know, I made sure that I enjoyed myself. And the thing is, I'd gotten to a point at that point in my transition where I realized that people were going to clock me regardless. I was getting clocked so much at that point, it was left, right, and center, that it was the norm for me to get clocked. But the attitude I had back then was, I will not allow your perception of me to prevent me from living my life. I'm not going to allow your hatred of me to prevent me from having fun, to prevent me from going places. I'm not going to become like this invalid and live trapped in my house. Even though that's what I wanted to do, I just wanted to hide every day. But I wasn't going to do that because I felt that by doing that, I was giving people power. So, I go to the party, and I remember I had like short hair, and I was wearing this red dress, and you better believe people were clocking me left, right, center. They were just clocking me. And I was basically, I was sitting on that clock, minding my own business, having a good time. So I'm busy dancing. Now, it's important to mention, now y'all know I'm not a perfect person. If y'all have listened to any of my story times, I'm sure you can identify multiple occasions where you're like, Christabel, but you are also a problem. So, look, I was a problem this evening. So I'm busy dancing. The two girls are sitting down on the table. They're just chilling, and I'm dancing by the railings. So we're on a second-story building. Tell me why I go over the railings and start dancing over the railings, technically on the roof of the other club. Now, girl, the minute I did that, security was all up in me. The bouncers just pounced. They were on me like gravy on rice. So they jump on me and they're like, out, out, you're leaving this club. So I basically get thrown out of the club. Now, the two girls that are there, the one girl, she had never even met me. She's freaking out. I'm getting thrown out. And Lauren is nowhere in sight. I think she was busy making out with some guy in the club. So the one girl, we're going to call her, I forget all these names, but we're going to call her Red. So Red comes out with me, and she's busy on her cell phone trying to get hold of Lauren, trying to find out where Lauren is, because she sort of felt that, okay, if Lauren comes out and then we all try to speak to the bouncers, maybe they'll let me back in. So she's begging the bouncers, telling them how sorry I am, it's not going to happen again, but the bouncers were not having it. This is where the clocking comes in. So we're standing by the flight of stairs, and as we're standing there, we're close to the entrance. Now, two guys come towards us. These two black guys walk towards me and Red, and immediately, they're trying to talk to Red. They're trying to flirt with her. They're trying to, get in there. And Red just wasn't having it. We were kind of in a situation, so she really wasn't trying to flirt with these guys. So she just brushed them off, and she was like, listen, I'm not interested. But they kept trying to talk to her. Then she just stopped responding. Well, I guess these boys felt some type of way because they noticed. So she stops responding to them. So they get all angry and they turn their attention on me. And obviously they could see that I was trans. They could pick up that I was visibly trans. And instead of directing their anger towards Red, they direct all of their anger towards me. And they're talking about, you're all type of man, this. I'm not going to repeat what they said, but they're talking this, that, the other, about me looking like a dude, me being a dude, this, that, and the other. Now, I'm smart enough to ignore these guys because the aggression in their voice, I've heard guys speak that aggressively to me before, and I know not to entertain that. Red, on the other hand, who's cisgender, she was just kind of like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, she goes off at them. Again, they decide to take their anger out on me. And the one guy tries to push me off, we're on the second story, so tries to push me off, like, the railings. And, like, aggressively, though. At this point, Red starts to freak out, and she's, like, hitting the guy, and she's swearing. And the guys notice the bouncers who are just watching this whole thing. And they just leave. Now, I remember at that moment, obviously, if somebody's trying to push you off the railings, trying to push you on the other side, and somebody's like aggressively hitting you, that's not going to leave you feeling like a superstar. You're not going to be feeling all type of special. And I just remember at that moment, obviously, I didn't even want to go back into the club because of what had happened. Honestly, I felt shitty within myself, and I just wanted to go back to my apartment. So now this girl is freaking out and trying to get a hold of Lauren. I just looked at her and I was like, listen, sweetheart, thank you so much for trying to help me. It's not happening today. So I was like, I live just up the road from here. I'm just going to walk to my apartment. I just want to be alone right now. And she just left it at that, and she went back into the club, and I walked back to my apartment. And I remember as I was walking back to my apartment, I kept repeating to myself, like, I love you, Christabel. Even if nobody else does, I love you. You're beautiful. You're excellent. There is nothing wrong about you. There is only beauty. I got to my apartment, and there was this big-ass mirror right at the front, and I stood there, and I looked at myself, and I just did this. I used to do this thing where I'd look at myself in the mirror, and I'd be like, I love you. I love you. I love you. And I kept repeating to myself how loved I was, how beautiful I was, because the world is going to try and throw this message at you and try and tell you that you're not lovable, that you're not worthy, that you are bad. And the more of these experiences we have, the more we start to believe it. I think what made that time difficult was all of my friends were cisgender. I didn't know anyone who was trans, especially back then. And my cis friends just did not understand what transphobia was. So I wasn't even going to try and explain to them what was going on with me. I wasn't even going to try and explain to them what I was feeling, because I knew more often than not they would just gaslight the shit out of me and be like, well, I don't experience that. I don't see you going through that. And I knew that I wasn't going to do that. I needed to learn how to deal with all of this negativity. I remember there would be days where I would come into my room after somebody had said something awful. I would turn on like this loud like hip hop, like I would turn on like Lil Wayne or just something mad and angry, or I'd turn on like My Chemical Romance or Linkin Park, and I would just pull like the mattress and I would just start hitting it, because I felt like I needed to get the anger out of my body. I needed to release it. It could not stay within the cells of my body, because if it did, it was going to kill me. And that type of anger, that type of bitterness, it wasn't worth it couldn't have me. I wasn't going to do it. I was not going to do it. And you better believe I wasn't going to hate myself. I didn't care where I was in transition. What I wasn't going to do was I was not going to turn on myself. I was not going to internalize all of the hatred, because that would have killed me. Now let's fast forward to my surgery. I have my surgery. I'd gotten to a point where my one friend Melanie, who'd gotten on hormones and had a similar surgery, she told me, she was like, oh, after you have it, or after I had it, it was the best year of my life. Nobody clocked me. Everything was perfect. And I just remember looking at her, and at that point, I'd had so many negative experiences. I couldn't even imagine what that would look like, people not clocking me. So I didn't even want to get my hopes up. Girl, when I tell you my body started changing, everything changed. Just the way people reacted to me. But you know what was interesting though? One thing I noticed was before the transphobia that I got, it was mainly people being shocked and being like, oh my God, like, look at that, like, what's going on? It was more out of shock. There was some level of anger. Some people would just be straight up angry at me, but at no point was jealousy. After my surgery and after hormones, yes, I could walk down the streets. Yes, the very same guys who used to talk all this mess about me being all type of man, they were suddenly trying to talk to me, trying to get with me. Yes, I could go anywhere without anybody batting an eyelid, but I noticed something. Number one, my fear of being exposed as trans was heightened. Before my surgery, I just accepted that everybody knew that I was trans, and it is what it is. I'm just going to live with it. But after my surgery and after hormones, suddenly there was this fear of never wanting to go back to that place. Never wanting to be treated the way that I was treated. I was like a fat kid that lost all the weight and never wanted to be fat again. And the funny thing is, I noticed that with girls, especially, girl, I would just rub them off the wrong way. Girls and butch queens. You see them too. Those two groups. And whenever I would go to a nightclub and a cisgender female would pick up that I'm trans, let's say one person, because there's always that one person who's just, a little bit fast, picks up that I'm trans, and it wouldn't happen all of the time, but every, now and again, girl picks up that I'm trans. She would make it a point to tell every single person in the nightclub that I'm in fact transgender, and it would become like this sensationalized thing. I noticed even at work, so I worked at this in this corporate company, and there was this one German girl who made it her life's mission to tell anyone who would call me attractive that I was trans. And I remember in that company, people knew that I was trans, and it made guys want to avoid me. But when I moved to my new job, where people didn't even know about that, I noticed how differently I was treated because people didn't know. But I was still scared that they would find out because I knew people were jealous. Well, I knew some girls would be jealous, and I knew that people like to sensationalize these things. I remember this one girl, she even went as far as to tell the guy that I was with that I was genetically born male. And it was as though anyone who tried to talk to me, they would all run up to him and be like, no, 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 that's a trans girl, that's a trans girl, like, are you crazy, what's going, you know what I mean? So regardless of where I am or was or will be in transition, transphobia is an inevitability. I know even after my FFS, it's gotten to a point where I realize that my FFS needs to be for me, not because I want to pass better, because I'm never going to reach a point in my life where people don't make a big deal about this. So it's not about me wanting to change my body now because of society. It's about me just wanting to have FFS for me. At this point in my life, I'm just learning how to deal with the transphobia the best way that I can, learning to love myself in the midst of it, realizing that there's nothing wrong with me, but rather it is those people. It comes from a space of jealousy. It comes from a place of jealousy. If you see a girl and you straight up don't like her, and then you find out she's trans, and suddenly it's this big performance or this big show, that's you not being happy with yourself. I remember this one girl who was telling the whole club that I'm trans. As she's busy dancing with her boyfriend or the guy she's met, she's busy going off about, oh, that's man, that's man, that's man. And I'm thinking to myself, you have the guy. Y'all are having a moment together. Why are you stopping yourself from having a good night? Why am I such a fixation? And the answer to that is a person who is jealous. It is what it is. Like, tell me what you want. It is what it is. And I'm not going to let that destroy me. I'm not going to hold on to your piece of bitterness. You keep on to that. You hold on to that hatred and you let it kill you. Because the funny thing is, sometimes we think that if somebody treats us bad and we hate them or we react or we treat them in some type of way, it's going to affect them. No, it doesn't. It's literally like taking a piece of burning coal, picking it up with the intention to throw it at somebody else. That coal needs to burn you before it can ever get to anybody else. Us being worried about these transphobic people is not going to help heal us. Us working on our own feelings of insecurity, working on our own feelings of inadequacy, and learning how to deal with the transphobia as and when it comes is going to heal us. Learning to transition with love is what's going to heal us. So I just want you to know that wherever you are, and I don't tell these stories to scare you or to scare you about transitioning, because in as much as I've had negative experiences, like my life after surgery and hormones, I almost feel like it started. I almost feel like that's when I was born. Like oh my gosh, I've had so much fun and I've had so many opportunities and just my life is beautiful now. When I was living as the other person, it wasn't. It was just pain. But now I look at myself and I'm just kind of like, every day I have hope for something new. And yes, there's some challenges, but we work through them. And as far as clocking goes, even if I get clocked now, I'm just like, clock me on my shit. Clock me when I'm being brilliant. Clock me when I'm praising God. Clock me, clock me when I'm making the sale. Clock me when I'm kissing my boo. Clock me when I'm fucking popping. Clock me when I'm laughing with my friends. Clock me in my happiness, boo. Because you can clock me all day long, and I'm going to sit on that clock. It's not going to take anything away from me, but it's going to take away your time and your happiness. I'm trans. I love being trans. I'm beautiful. And so are you. I love you. Thank you so much for watching. This video was not short. I do apologize, but I love you guys. And just remember, it gets easier. You learn how to deal with it if you're willing to do the work on yourself. So thank you so much. Please stay safe. Just stay safe. You know what it's like in these streets.